Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Time to Level Up podcast. I am recording today from a completely different location. We have moved into our new house. Now it is every other room besides my office is set up. So I am sitting in a spot where I won't normally be sitting, but I am sitting in my office and I'm looking out the window and I have a new view. So yay for that. It has been a long time coming. And today, I kind of want to talk about that a little bit in conjunction with releasing my book. Many things have gone on in my world over the last couple months. And I realized that celebrating them and acknowledging my achievements does not come easy. And in fact, sometimes it feels very unnatural to me. And I wanted to kind of share that with you because I think sometimes celebrating and acknowledging and sitting in our achievements and success is super hard and doesn't come easy. I think to most, it doesn't come easy and feels unnatural. And I did a little exploring as to why that is. I came up with some reasons. And then I came up with some ways that I've figured out how to do it so that it does feel a little more natural. And I want to share those with you. And as I go through this, I also want to share some of the facts surrounding the past couple months and how they've impacted how I've felt or how I've chosen to have them impact me. Okay. And I'm recording this too. It's October 31st. I'm recording it on Halloween, which also is somewhat appropriate because there's a little bit of fear in celebrating success and it can be scary. And I'm going to hit on that too. So let's dive in. Let's dive in. And also when you're listening to this, I want you to think about the fact of celebrating you and how do you put yourself in places where you can celebrate you and your success. And if you haven't already purchased your ticket to She Thinks Big Live, you need to go do so. You need to go do that. Go to AndreaLiebross.com/live and get your ticket. The day-long workshop and conference and event, it's going to be held in January in Indianapolis, and it is going to be a place to celebrate you and your success. And doing that, being surrounded by other women who also want to celebrate. And I think it's just going to be an amazing time. The feeling that you will experience when you're in that room is going to be like no other. It's going to be like no other. So head on over there, AndreaLiebross.com/She Thinks Live rather, and also get that VIP option because that'll really make it even extra special. Okay. So let's dive in. So first of all, I don't think the reason that celebrating our successes actually has anything to do with my childhood or your childhood, in fact. But if I look at my childhood, the difficulty of this, I don't think has anything to do with childhood. In fact, in my childhood, we celebrated regularly, right? My mom was a big celebrator. My parents are big celebrators. In fact, it bothers my husband that we celebrate so much. But I think in my adult life, my husband is not a big celebrator, right? He's like a put one foot in front of the other and keep going. In fact, he found it really difficult during his medical training, residency, med school, joining a practice, becoming a partner. He found celebrating those milestones extremely difficult. And I can remember having conversations with him about how he should be feeling a certain way that he wasn't. Okay. So I don't think my challenge in celebrating has anything to do with childhood. It could have a little bit to do with the household I'm living in now. But I think what it has to do with most is that I don't necessarily think about my own celebrations regularly. I think about my clients' celebrations every day. But when it comes to me, I have to be prompted by my coach on, hey, Andrea, what are we celebrating? So here are some reasons that I think celebrating becoming a best-selling author, becoming a new homeowner, and even celebrating the milestones that I met along the way of the journeys of both of those was difficult. Okay, but before we dive into the reasons, okay, which are really just thoughts, I want to share with you some of the facts. Okay, specifically some of the facts around this book launch. Okay, the release of the book that took place over the summer and into the month of September was not at all what I expected. Okay, and here's 5 things that happened that contributed to this book launch that were unexpected and really created a lot of negativity and animosity for me. So number 1, Amazon kind of changed their algorithm a little bit, and at least it changed it to the point where it affected my launch. And my publisher said to me, listen, we need to get this book trending on Amazon. And the way to do that is to do a 99-cent kind of behind the scenes secret launch of an ebook. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to just sell an ebook at 99 cents for a day. I wanted people to have the real book. But we did it. We had the 99-cent launch. Okay. So that was kind of number 1. And once you had that 99-cent launch and you sold what they guesstimated would be an X number of books in particular categories on Amazon, then your book would be trending and it would be searchable on Amazon. You'd be able to find it if you went in the search bar. But here's what happened to me. I totally hit all the numbers. I went beyond the numbers. I had plenty of 99-cent ebook purchases. But when I went in and typed She Thinks Big into the Amazon search bar, nothing came up. And nothing came up on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday, and on Saturday when I went in, and you typed in She Thinks Big, guess what came up? A workbook that I did not write that was an infringement on my copyright rights that was produced by AI. So to back up, by the end of the day, Wednesday, we should have been able to find my book in the general Amazon search bar, but we couldn't. Saturday, you still couldn't find it, but you could find a infringed, plagiarized, copyright, not so great book, workbook. And by the end of Saturday, there was another one. And by the end of within those 7 days, there were a total of 4 workbooks, none of which I created, all of which took material from my book and made it into their own using, I think, AI. Okay, so so 3 things already. Number 1, the 99-cent launch, which I didn't want to do. Number 2, it didn't show up on Amazon. And number 3, there were plagiarized workbooks. Okay, so now I have to report these workbooks and I seek legal counsel from my attorney. And at that point, she tells me, oh, and guess what? Someone has filed to trademark Time to Level Up, the name of this podcast. So that was something else that I really wasn't expecting. Okay, that was the 4th piece of this unexpected puzzle. So finally, the book shows up on Amazon. And I get 2 of the plagiarized workbooks down, not the other 2. We can go into why that is later. And then comes what I'm calling like the real launch, when people could purchase the hardcover or the paperback. And on that day, my email gets hacked and I cannot access my personal email through iCloud for 12 hours. And there is no reason for that, except when you call the Apple support, they tell me they're doing maintenance on my email address. Really? On the day my book launches, you're doing maintenance? I find that really hard to believe. So I had no access to email that day. So that was a 5th thing. And then lastly, Amazon has what's called an author page where you can put your bio and some endorsements or reviews. Nope. The author page was down for 2 weeks and I wasn't able to create my author page. So all of these things happened. And in this time when I was supposed to be celebrating, these things were happening. It was like a cloud over my head. Meanwhile, we're building a house and things are going wrong in the background with that. So I realized that celebrating is extremely hard. And sometimes it's even extra hard. right? Because my thoughts about those facts were impacting how I felt. Okay. So that's just the background. But now I want to dig into some reasons. I think I have 5 reasons. Let me see right here. I have 6 reasons why celebrating can be really hard. Okay. Here's number 1. You're really forced to move on quickly. So this was a really extra busy time for me. It was super fast paced. I had tons of to-do lists. I had lots of projects. I had ideas, and I was creating nonstop. I was creating web pages and landing pages and links and processes around the launch. And it left little or no room for pausing and appreciating what was going on. I was forced to move on from each mini celebration really quickly. So, number 1 reason why celebrating is hard, and I want you to think about this, is if you're moving on too quickly. Okay. Here's the second reason why I think celebrating is hard. And this was really, really relevant for me. Number 2, you're getting caught up in your thoughts. So I had so many thoughts about all of the facts, and I was super anxious and I was worried. And that coulda, shoulda, woulda showed up all the time. And those thoughts, I should have done it this way, or I wish I could have done it that way. Not only did they just show up, but they distracted me, and they created a lot of feelings that I typically don't want, feelings that I know not to indulge in. Okay. And then eventually I would move on from whatever that thought was that was creating the feeling, but I often felt depleted. Okay. It did not leave me wanting to focus on whatever the next step was. It definitely did not leave me wanting to celebrate my win. Okay. But here's the third thing. The third reason why celebrating is hard: imposter syndrome. Okay. Now, imposter syndrome is all about self-doubt and comparing and perfection. And it's easy to fall into this trap when you're really usually so focused on other things that it becomes hard to recognize that this is what is going on, that you are experiencing imposter syndrome. But yet, if you experience imposter syndrome, this is exactly why it's important to celebrate wins and achievements. All right. So, number 1 reason why it's hard to celebrate is that you're often forced to move on quickly. Number 2 is that you're getting caught up in your thoughts. And number 3, imposter syndrome, which leads me to number 4. When you're caught up in your thoughts and things are moving quickly, celebrating is hard because sometimes you're experiencing decision fatigue or burnout. And I talked about this in a recent episode. I talked a lot about decision fatigue. And when you're in that spot, when you're feeling a little awful burnt out, when you're feeling the feelings of stress and anxiety and overwhelm, you often can feel exhausted and depleted. And putting energy towards celebrating your achievements is like the last thing that's going to happen. But in reality, this is the best time to pause and reflect on your achievements. Right? And if I did do that, which I did at times, it really reminded me of why this is important. This celebrating thing is important. And because it brought joy to a situation which was exhausting. Okay. Here's the 5th reason why celebrating sometimes is really hard. Being in the spotlight might not be your thing. And on the day of my launch celebration, so we had a big party here in Indianapolis about a week after the real, quote unquote, real paperback and hardback launched. We had a big celebration. And on that day, I even said to several people, why am I doing this? Because kind of the spotlight was on me. And when the spotlight's on you, it's really easy to minimize your achievements. You tend to discount things and shrug things off as no big deal. And I actually had my own coaching call, mastermind call that day, that same day of the celebration, October 4th. And Janine, who was on the mastermind call with me, said to me, Andrea, you got to own it. You got to own it. And she was right. Not minimize it, but own it. And the whole reason we were having a celebration was because two of my friends, my personal friends, said, you have to celebrate this. It's like not an option. Right. So I was minimizing and they said no. So when you minimize the wins and keep on going without celebrating, you create a pattern and a habit. And I might have been in that pattern and habit, but I've been trying to get out of it. Okay. And the last reason that celebrating I identified as being hard is because when you're a high achiever, when you're a business owner, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a listener of this podcast, it can be difficult to cut yourself some slack and permit yourself rest. So there's no rest for the weary. So when we don't rest, it is hard to celebrate. Keeping yourself constantly busy does not allow the time and space to reflect, to appreciate, to acknowledge, to celebrate. And therefore, things just keep going. So, all right, so let's review these 6 reasons. Number 1, you're moving on too quickly. Number 2, you're getting caught up in your thoughts. Number 3, you're experiencing imposter syndrome. Number 4, you've got decision fatigue or burnout. Number 5, you're minimizing your achievements. And number 6, you have a belief that there's no rest for the weary. Okay. But here are 4 things that I started to do and that you can start doing immediately and that will make a big impact. Number 1, pause and reflect. This may be hands down the biggest thing that you can start doing right now. Taking time to pause and notice after achieving something or doing something hard that you've been procrastinating on, or wrapping up a big project, or writing a book, or moving into a house, allowing yourself a moment of compassion is super important. Allowing yourself a moment to pause and ask yourself, how am I feeling? Super important. So about 10 days ago, I actually spent 3 days by myself in a bed and breakfast in New Hampshire, in between 2 different retreats when I was at and when I put on. And that really gave me time to pause and reflect. It gave me time to pause and reflect on how I was feeling and what did I really desire? What did I want to happen? So have you built in time to pause and reflect into your schedule? The She Thinks Big live conference workshop event in January is a time to pause and reflect. That's the kind of thing, that kind of experience allows you to do that. So again, go get your ticket, andrealiebross.com/live. Okay, the second thing that you can do right now is you can acknowledge, and you don't even have to acknowledge out loud. You can acknowledge in writing. Sometimes I think it's easier to celebrate on paper than it is in public. Are you writing down your achievements? Are you doing a thought download? Do you have a nice journal or even a little notebook or even the notes on your phone where you're allowing yourself to brag about yourself? Bragging about yourself in writing, acknowledging it, is super important. Now, the third thing, if you want to take that acknowledging to the next level, go tell someone. Having a support system that has your back, that wants the best for you, that celebrates you even when you have difficulty, is so important in life. So if you have some of these people in your life, tell them about your wins. Let them celebrate you while you celebrate yourself. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your colleagues. I just hosted a retreat for my mastermind people, and so many of them, I think I can picture, well, I was half, 4 out of the 8 acknowledged that they never tell their family anything about their business, the good, the bad, or the ugly. Your family needs to know. There's no way they can support you if you don't tell them. Okay. And then here's the last thing. One way that you can combat these 6 reasons for difficulty in celebrating, the last way I'm going to share with you is to reward yourself. There is nothing like an amazing reward, and it doesn't need to be fancy or expensive or elaborate. It can be a day off. It can be a cup of coffee. It can be a massage. It could be you deciding you're not cooking. All of those can be rewards. And all of those are so necessary in order for you to celebrate, for you to pause long enough to assess, for you to not experience decision fatigue, for you to recognize what is happening. Okay, so my friends, 4 things you can start doing immediately. Number 1, pause and reflect. And I did that in New London. Number 2, acknowledge. And I did that in writing more than anything else. Number 3, tell someone. And I got better at this. I'm not great at it, but I'm getting better. Getting better. And number 4, reward yourself. I definitely did the no cooking thing. I definitely did the bodywork massage thing. And I'm starting to do more of taking the days off thing. Something else that I just want to throw in here. If you're not celebrating, one of the reasons might be because you have created sort of a glass ceiling. You've created a ceiling for yourself, one which is really hard to go beyond. And I've been reading a lot of Gay Hendricks' Big Leap book, because in that book, he talks about moving your own ceiling. And when you move it, and when you realize that you can step into things that are bigger, maybe better, definitely achievements, if celebrating becomes a lot easier. Okay, my friends, let's celebrate together. Let's celebrate in January at She Thinks Big Live. You may be listening to this when it's still the early bird discount. I'm not sure, but head over to shethinksbigthebook.com to get yourself a copy of the book, and head over to AndreaLiebross.com/live to get your ticket to She Thinks Big Live. And you can bring a copy of your book and I'll even sign it. All right, until next time, level up. And who do you know that needs to level up too? Share this episode with them, tag them, help them celebrate. By sharing this episode, you are helping them celebrate something that they should be celebrating. So who do you know that needs to celebrate? Share this episode with them, and then let's come celebrate together in January. And I hope that if you publish a book, you do not have to experience all those things that I experienced. And I hope it goes smoothly. But if it doesn't, remember, it will get done in the end. Okay, I will see you all next week.